Joshua. Chapter 15. This was the land allotted to the tribe of Judah, by families. It stretched south to the border of Edom, to the wilderness of Zin in the far south. Their boundary began at the end of the Salt Sea, the bay that faces south, and then went south of Scorpion, passed through the wilderness of Zin, then heading south from Kadesh Barnea to Hezron. From there it went up to Adar and then turned towards Karka, passing through Asman and out to the Wadi of Egypt, ending at the sea. This was their southern border. The eastern border of Judah was the Salt Sea, up to where the Jordan River ends. The northern boundary ran from the northern bay of the sea where the Jordan ends, up to the border of Beth Hoglath, and then north of Beth Araba to the stone of Bovan, Reuben's son. From there it went to the border of Debir through the valley of Acre, and turned north towards Gilgal, opposite the heights of Adumim to the south of the valley. Then the boundary continued to the waters of En-Shemesh and out to En-Rogel. The boundary then went through the valley of Ben-Hinnom, along the southern slopes of the Jebusites, that is Jerusalem, then on up to the top of the mountain overlooking the valley of Hinnom, right up to the northern end of the valley of Rephaim. From there the boundary ran from the top of the mountain to the water spring at Nephtoah and onto the towns on Mount Ephraim. Then it bent towards Bala, Kiriath Jearim. Then the boundary moved around to the west of Bala to Mount Seir and passed along the northern slope of Mount Jearim to the town of Kesalon, down to Beth Shemesh and on to Timnah. The boundary then ran to the north slope of Ekron and bent towards Shikkeron, passing Mount Bala, out to Jabneel, and ending at the sea. The western boundary was the coastline of the Great Sea. These were the boundaries around the tribe of Judah, by families. The Lord had instructed Joshua to allocate some land in Judah's territory to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and so he was given the town of Kiriath Arba, or Hebron. Arba was the father of Anak. Caleb drove out 3 family groups, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, descendants of Anak. From there he went to attack the inhabitants of Debir, previously known as Kiriath Sepher. Caleb announced, "Whoever attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give him my daughter Aksah to marry." Othniel, son of Kenaz, brother of Caleb, captured the town, so Caleb gave him his daughter Aksah to marry. When she came to him, she encouraged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What do you want?" She replied, "Please give me a blessing. Since you have already given me land that's like the desert, please give me springs of water as well." So he gave her both the upper and the lower springs. This was the land allotted to the tribe of Judah, by families. The towns for the tribe of Judah in the far south on the border with Edom: Kabzeel, Eder, Jagur, Kena, Dimonah, Adada, Kadesh, Hazer, Ithnan, Ziph, Telem, Beloth, Hazer Hadada, Kiriath Hezron, or Hazer, Ammon, Shema, Malada, Hazar-Gada, Heshman, Beth Pelet, Hazar Shual, Beersheba, Biziathiah, Bala, Iim, Ezem, Eltalad, Kezel, Hormah, Ziklag, Madmannah, Sansana, Leboth, Shillim, Ain, and Rimmon, 29 towns with their associated villages. The towns in the western foothills: Eshtael, Zorah, Ashnah, Zanoah, En-Ganim, Tapua, Enam, Jarmuth, Adullam, Soko, Azekah, Sharaim, Adathaim, Gedera, and Gederothaim, 14 towns with their associated villages. Also, Zenan, Hadashah, Migdalgad, Dilean, Mizpeh, Joktheel, Lachish, Boskath, Eglon, Kabban, Lamam, Kidlish, Gederoth, Beth-Dagon, Naamah, and Makkedah, 16 towns with their associated villages. In addition, Libnah, Ether, Ashan, Iftah, Ashnah, Nezib, Keilah, Aksib, and Mershah, 9 towns with their associated villages. Ekron and its towns and villages. From Ekron to the sea, those towns near Ashdod and their associated villages. Ashdod and its towns with its associated villages, and Gaza with its towns and associated villages, as far as the Wadi of Egypt and along the coastline of the sea. In the hill country, Shamir, Jadar, Soko, Danah, Kiriath Sana, or Debir, Anab, Eshtemo, Enim, Goshen, Palon, and Gilo, 11 towns with their associated villages. Also, Arab, Duma, Eshan, Janim, Beth Tapua, Afika, Humta, Kiriath Arba, or Hebron, and Zir, 9 towns with their associated villages. In addition, Maon, Carmel, Ziph, Jeddah, Jezreel, Jokdeam, Zanoah, Cain, Gibeah, and Timnah, 10 towns with their associated villages. Also, Halhul, Beth-zur, Gitter, Marith, Bethanath, and Eltekon, 6 towns with their associated villages. In addition, Kiriath Baal, or Kiriath Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 towns with their associated villages. In the wilderness, Beth Arba, Middin, Sekaka, Nibshan, the city of Salt, and En-Gedi, 6 towns with their associated villages. However, the tribe of Judah could not drive out the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so the Jebusites live among the tribe of Judah in Jerusalem to this very day. Joshua. Chapter 16. The boundary for the allocation of the descendants of Joseph went from the Jordan near Jericho, then east of the springs of Jericho, and through the wilderness from Jericho up into the hill country of Bethel. From Bethel, or Luz, it continued to the border of Ataroth the Archite. Then it descended west to the border of the Japhletites and the border of Lower Beth Horon, on up to Gezer, and then out to the sea. This was the allocation received by the descendants of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. This was the territory allocated to the tribe of Ephraim by families. The boundary of their allocation ran from Ataroth-Adar in the east to Upper Beth Horon, and then on to the sea. From Mikmethath in the north, the boundary turned east, passing Tanath-Shiloh to the east of Genoa. From Genoa it went down to Ataroth and Nara, then touched Jericho and ended at the Jordan. From Tapua the boundary ran west to the brook of Cana and then out to the sea. This was the land allotted to the tribe of Ephraim by families. Also, some towns with their associated villages that lay in the land allotted to the tribe of Manasseh were assigned to the tribe of Ephraim. However, they did not drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, so the Canaanites live among the tribe of Ephraim to this very day, but as forced laborers. Joshua. Chapter 17. This was the allocation to the tribe of Manasseh, Joseph's firstborn son. Machir was Manasseh's firstborn son, who was the father of Gilead. Because Machir had been an excellent fighter, Gilead and Bashan had already been allocated to him. The allocation was for the rest of the tribe of Manasseh, to the families of Abiezer, Helek, Israel, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemida. These were the male descendants of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, by families. But Zelophehad, son of Hefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons. He only had daughters, whose names were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They approached Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the leaders, and told them, "The Lord ordered Moses to give us an allocation of land along with our brothers." So Joshua allotted land to them along with their brothers, as the Lord had ordered. Consequently, Manasseh received 10 shares of land beside the land of Gilead and Bashan on the other side of the Jordan. Because the daughters of the tribe of Manasseh received an allocation along with the sons. The land of Gilead had been allotted to the rest of the descendants of Manasseh. The boundary of the tribe of Manasseh ran from Asher to Mikmethath, near Shechem, then south to the spring of Tapua. The land around Tapua was allocated to Manasseh, but the town of Tapua, which was on the border of Manasseh's land, was allocated to Ephraim. From there the boundary ran down to the valley of Kenah. South of the valley some of the towns belonged to Ephraim among the towns of Manasseh. The boundary ran along the north side of the valley and ended at the sea. To the south the land belonged to Ephraim, and to the north, to Manasseh. The sea is the boundary. The boundary to the north was with Asher, and with Issachar to the east. The following towns with their associated villages were allocated to Manasseh, but lay within the land of Issachar and Asher: Bethshan, Ibleam, Dor, on the coast, Endur, Tanakh, and Megiddo. But the descendants of Manasseh could not take possession of these towns because the Canaanites were determined to go on occupying the land. However, later on, when the Israelites grew strong enough, they made the Canaanites do forced labor, but they did not drive them out. Then the descendants of Joseph came to Joshua and asked him, "Why have you given us only one allocation, only one share of the land, when there's so many of us, because the Lord has blessed us so much?" Joshua told them, "If there's so many of you, if the hill country of Ephraim is too small for you, then go and clear ground for yourselves from the forest in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim." The descendants of Joseph replied, "The hill country isn't big enough for us, but the Canaanites living in the lowlands have iron chariots, both those in Bethshan and its villages, and those in the valley of Jezreel." Joshua said to the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the descendants of Joseph, "Since you are so many, and you are so strong, you will be given more than just one share. You will be allocated the hill country in addition. Though it is forest, you will clear it and own it, from one end to the other. You will drive out the Canaanites, even though they have iron chariots, and even though they are strong." Joshua chapter 18. The land had been subdued and lay before them. The Israelites gathered together at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting. However, 7 of the Israelite tribes had not received their land allocations. So Joshua asked the Israelites, "How long will you go on being reluctant to go and take possession of the land that the Lord gave your forefathers? Choose 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them out to explore the land. Then they can write a description regarding the land allocations and bring it to me. They are to divide the land into 7 parts, up to the boundary of Judah's land in the south and Joseph's land in the north. Once you have written the description of the land, dividing it in 7 parts, you will bring it to me here, and I will cast lots for you in the presence of the Lord our God. But the Levites do not receive a share, for their role as priests of the Lord is their allocation. Also, Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have already received their allocation that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them on the east side of the Jordan." As the men started out on their way to explore the land, Joshua told them, "Go throughout the land and write a description of what you find. Then return to me, and I will cast lots for you in the presence of the Lord here in Shiloh." So the men went and explored the land and wrote down on a scroll a description of the 7 parts, recording the towns in each part. Then they returned to Joshua at the camp in Shiloh, where Joshua cast lots for them in the presence of the Lord. There Joshua divided the land up and allotted the different parts to the remaining Israelite tribes. The first lot cast went to the tribe of Benjamin, by families. The land allotted lay between that of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Joseph. Their boundary began at the Jordan, and went north of the slope of Jericho, west through the hill country, coming out at the wilderness of Beth-aven. Then the boundary went south to Luz, or Bethel, and on down to Adaroth-adar on the mountain south of Lower Beth-horon. Here the boundary turned south along the western side of the mountain facing Beth-horon, finishing at Kiriath-baal, or Kiriath-jearim, a town of the tribe of Judah. This was the western boundary. The southern boundary began at the edge of Kiriath-jearim. It ran to the spring at Nephtoah, and then down to the foot of the mountain that faces the valley of Ben-Hinnom, at the north end of the valley of Rephaim. Then it went down the valley of Hinnom, along the slope near the Jebusite town, south towards En-rogel. From there it headed north to En-shemesh and on to Jelaloth, opposite the heights of Adummim, and then on down to the stone of Bohan, Reuben's son. Then it went along the ridge opposite the Jordan Valley to the north, and then down into the Jordan Valley itself. From there it ran along the north slope of Beth Hoglah, ending at the north bay of the Salt Sea, the southern end of the Jordan. This was the southern boundary. The eastern boundary was the Jordan. These were the boundaries around the land of the tribe of Benjamin, by families. These were the towns of the tribe of Benjamin, according to families: Jericho, Beth Hoglah, Emek Keziz, Beth Araba, Zemaraim, Bethel, Avim, Para, Ophrah, Kephramoni, Ophni, and Geba, 12 towns with their associated villages. In addition, Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Kephirah, Moza, Rechem, Irpeel, Terala, Zelah, Haleph, Jebus, or Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath-jearim, 14 towns with their associated villages. This was the land allotted to the tribe of Benjamin, by families.